So now we're going to get started with our student panel session. And for some of you, it's been a few years since you were last year, and I suppose maybe for others it's been a little bit slightly longer. But look, all of the challenges that students face, I think, have been pretty constant over the years. But the world's different now, and people are impacted by different things and new discoveries in new fields, new technologies, and they're facing many new challenges as well. And so today we're fortunate that we're going to have the opportunity to hear from some of our current students who are here studying both medicine and the biosciences. And as future leaders in research in medicine, I'm sure it's going to be really exciting and interesting to hear what they have to say. So our moderator for the panel is Varupi Gupta. She's an assistant director of outreach and responsible for communications and marketing of BioSci careers. Varupi focuses on finding engaging ways to connect the bioscience students and trainees with expertise and resources of the bioscience career community. And she's particularly interested in the role of social media and how Gen Z likes to consume and create content. And so Varupi leads an annual event that brings together Stanford staff and students around effective student communications. And she serves on the School of Medicine staff community on diversity and equity and inclusion. And so please welcome Varupi and the student panel.
Thank you. Thank you, Deval. It's always a challenge to be right after lunch in the afternoon, but I'm pretty sure that our students here will make it energizing and engaging. And as Deval said, I work in marketing and communications with Stanford BioSci Careers, which is the career services community for Stanford Biosciences. And we specialize in serving postdocs, graduate students, and medical students with individualized counseling, curriculum, and connection opportunities. We connect them with the different actors of our career services community, with alumni like you, with faculty, with employers, with campus partners, and with trainee and student group leaders, who in turn share with them their real life stories, their examples, their resources, and opportunities. And some of you might not be aware, we also offer a relatively new mentoring platform. It's called BioSci Connect. So it's an online mentoring platform that connects biosciences alumni like you with our current students and postdocs like you. And this is a good segue to shine the spotlight on our students. And as Deval said, we are excited to learn from them about campus life. What is it like to be a student on campus? Learn a little bit about campus life and resources. So I'll dive right in with my first question, and maybe you can tell us your 2-minute story, introducing yourself, and please include a little bit about the program you're in. Jessica, would you like to start?
Yeah, so my name is Jessica, and I'm an immunology PhD student in my second year. And I'm born and raised in the Washington, D.C. area. Then I went up to Canada, funny enough, to the University of Toronto to do my bachelor's degree in cell and molecular biology. Took a year off and then went to work at a pharmaceutical company called Kite Pharma. And then now I'm here at Stanford doing my PhD, and I really love it. I work in 2 labs, in the labs of Sean Bendel and Everett Meyer, where I work on bone marrow transplantation research, looking at the structure of the bone marrow in that context. And so some really great things that I've experienced throughout this is that I'm a part of several organizations here at Stanford, including the board of the Stanford Medicine Alumni Association. I'm also the liaison for the Bioscience Student Association for the alumni. I also am a part of the biotech, the Stanford Biotech board. So we have that as a way to also connect with alumni who are in the biotech industry, so the PhD students can be exposed to careers in biotech. So basically my story came from DC, now I'm in California. East Coast, West Coast.
Thank you, Jessica.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing. Henry, would you like to go next?
Hello, everyone. So my name is Henry Nguyen. I'm currently a second-year medical student. I'll be a third year this time next year, so it's very exciting. I'll be in the hospital soon. And I spent all my life in Louisiana. I was born and raised there. I worked on a farm most summers. I played football. So everyone's very shocked that I ended up here at Stanford. I currently work for a lot of AI companies. So all of my friends at other med schools are like, wow, I'm so jealous. I should have listened to you, Henry. I should have gone to Stanford because I'm just like so lucky, so blessed, so fortunate. And a lot of people say that my journey to Stanford is actually very poetic because my dad was an immigrant from Vietnam, and he immigrated here after the Vietnam War, and he actually landed in San Francisco. And he only stayed here for like a few weeks, and then he went down to Los Angeles, then he found some work in Louisiana, and he just kept on making his way down south, where we spent the rest of our lives. And in the 40 years he was here in America, he had never come back to the Bay. Not for vacation, not for work, not for anything. Until August 28th of 2022, where he returned as the father of a Stanford medical student. So, yeah, it's very inspiring, and I was just so happy to be able to say that to him. And it's so funny too, because like most immigrant parents, they don't really like share much of that information. So we didn't even find out how beautiful this story was until he was literally on the flight. And he was like, oh yeah, this is my first time back in the Bay in like 40 years. And I was like, what? And he's like, oh yeah. So it's so funny. But yeah, other than that, I'm currently on the board of governors. I very much love working with alumni. I actually didn't even know about this position until one of my mentors, she's actually here, Dr. Melissa Sims, she was on the board, and she's like, this would be a great position. So now I'm on it, and just being in Silicon Valley, it's a very big transition from Louisiana, because obviously our weather here is so great, even though today is a bit rainy. I know that I'm like very weakened, because every time I go back home, I'm like, God, it's so hot, or it's so cold. And all my friends are like, this is normal. And also same thing for inflation. Like I go home to restaurants, and I'm like, oh, these prices aren't too bad. And they're like, no, Hannah, these prices are horrible. And I'm like, I've lived in California for 2 years, so it's difficult. But other than that, I've been very much enjoying my time. This is easily the most enjoyable time I've had in my whole educational career. And I truly think I can only say that because I'm here at Stanford.
Thank you, Henry. Thanks for sharing the personal anecdotal stuff. Kamsi?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you all so much for being here. Really excited to be here as well to talk to you all a little bit about student life. My name is Kamsi. I am from Woodbridge, Connecticut. I spent most of my life in Connecticut. I didn't go too far for school. I went to Yale for undergrad, where I got my bachelor's in biomedical engineering. And then I took 2 years off. I moved to DC, funny enough. And I spent 2 years there doing some research at the NIH. Pandemic hit right around then, and then I was blessed enough to come to Stanford for medical school. And so I am now a third year here. I am part of the MSTP, or Medical Scientist Training Program. That is essentially students who are getting a dual degree in MD and a PhD. And so I've completed my first 2 years of medical school here. I will not be in the clinics, as Henry will be very soon. Instead, I'll be taking a short break to just do a different degree. And I'm now starting off my PhD in neuroscience in Michelle Mange's lab. She's doing amazing work with CAR T-cell therapy for brainstem cancers. During my time at Stanford, I've been lucky enough to be involved in a myriad of different student groups that I've really enjoyed. And specifically, I'm now the president for the Stanford Medical Student Association, and so I get to act as sort of a bridge between the current students and the faculty and the admin, and I get to interface also with alumni quite frequently as well, which is wonderful. I've also been one of 2 co-chairs for the Stanford University Minority Medical Alliance, and so that has been an incredible opportunity to advocate for folks who are underrepresented in this field, and hopefully give people equal opportunities to really excel at a place like Stanford that provides so much opportunity and so much innovation for folks. And of course, Stanford offers so many things besides that as well. I mean, I've been involved in the Stanford Medicine Arts Collective and involved in the interest group for neurologists and all sorts of little fun opportunities to get to explore what life is like as a student here and you know, hang out with my peers. So it's wonderful to be here.
Thank you. Thanks, Kamsi. And we have such an interesting mix of personal and professional interests, and also you all are maximizing the opportunities and resources that are available in campus with your work with the student organizations. So, you know, for most of our alumni here, they've stepped out of campus for a little bit, you know, from 2 years to 35 years, I'm told. So they would like to know a little bit about how is it to be a student on campus today, a little bit about student life on campus today, And do you want to start, Henry, this time?
Oh yeah, sure. So a lot of alumni have told me that this building did not exist whenever they were here as students, because I heard like most classes were in hallway, which I'll be honest, that's like scary, because we've had classes there and it always feels like so stuffy, and I'm like, oh, I can't even imagine like, yeah, because like our main classroom is LK 130. It's like literally like right underneath here, and they have like the version of that in hallway, but like it's very like congested and stuffy. So we know that we're very blessed, we're very spoiled, and that we have the 4th floor as well. And so it's funny that alumni will come visit, and I'm like, oh yeah, I can show you the 4th floor. And they're like, oh really? Like I thought it was just for students. I was like, oh, I'd love to show you how lucky we were though. So they're always very surprised. And I would say the thing I love most about Stanford and being on campus is that we're so interconnected, and it's so easy to reach out beyond the med school. Like Dr. Marcia, I've taken a bunch of her classes as part of my outside of medicine interests, and that's not something that's really done at most other med schools. Whenever I talk about like how I have friends in the law program, in the MBA, in epidemiology, and they're all just like, I only know my med school friends, or like, I'm so busy with life that I don't have time to make friends outside of the med school. So what I love about the campus is that, you know, it's constantly changing, so there's new buildings, but it's still very interconnected, and it's just so easy to reach beyond as much as you want.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Henry. Jessica, do you want to talk about a little bit about student life on campus and share your experiences?
Absolutely. So something that's really great about student life is that there's really an opportunity for PhD students to be able to connect with things outside of Stanford. So we're really able to bring in a lot of outside speakers, a lot of people from other organizations, not only just to educate us, but also to give us the opportunity to think about career opportunities outside of the typical academic track. I would say another thing that's really great is that there's a lot of translational research that's being done, and PhD students have a really wonderful opportunity to not just be focused on a lot of basic science research, but you really have the opportunity to be part of like clinical trial research and stuff like this, which is really a unique opportunity for Stanford that you don't get at a lot of institutions. And another thing that I would really like to highlight is the fact that, similar to Henry, PhD students, you're not just focused on your coursework. The coursework, even though coursework is a lot less important in the PhD program, we're allowed throughout our entire time here to take courses in any field or interest we have. I have a friend who took a class in like Chinese language recently, another one who took a philosophy course, another one who took a psychology course. So the ability to take this coursework and the ability to broaden yourself beyond just the biosciences, just being a lab scientist, and the idea and the ability to have the vision of being something beyond just a professor, is also something that, not just, but a professor is, is something that really is very unique to Stanford. And I think that a lot of students here appreciate quite a lot, is the ability to think broadly, to think differently, and to ask big questions, and really feel like you're empowered to be able to answer big questions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thanks, Jessica. Kamsi, you want to add to that about how is it to be a student on campus?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, honestly, so amazing points, and I think that sort of aspect of integration between sort of different campuses like the law school and the business school and the med school cannot be understated. I also want to shout out something that like has just been a wonderful experience for me, is like the breadth of opportunities there are here, and this speaks a little bit to what Jessica started talking about with coursework. I'll give some examples. I took a cooking class here, and I never at any point thought I would be going to Stanford School of Medicine to take a cooking class. But it turned out to be a wonderful experience, and I should add, it actually was helpful for my education as a medical student, because the course was taught by an MD chef, and I actually had the opportunity to learn a little bit about what it's like to be a dietitian for your patient and to help to care for their whole health. And so that was a wonderful experience. And I think that Stanford is fairly unique in its ability to offer all kinds of different opportunities and classes and student groups to be a part of. I took a ceramics course here that was wonderful, and to this day I'm still making. I actually had some friends over for dinner last night, and we were eating food in the bowls that I made, and it was just really fun. And so I think that's been really nice here as a student, to just get the opportunity to kind of check out of what some folks might call a bubble at times, and spend some time doing other things.
Yeah. Those are really interesting perspectives, from the cooking class to the breadth of opportunities. And also that goes into a little bit into my next question, which is about, if you look back, what makes Stanford, the experience here, unique? Especially if you compare it to some of the other colleges that you considered, or what you hear from your peers and colleagues and friends about their experiences at other institutions. So what makes your experience uniquely Stanford? What stands out the most? Do you want to start, Jessica?
Yeah, absolutely. So 2 things that I think are really key is the fact that I don't have an inherent pressure to be in the lab 24/7. I feel like there is a freedom to be able to have a work-life balance that is to your desire. As long as the work gets done, I think most PIs are pretty happy with you being able to explore and do what you would like, which I think at other institutions was not necessarily the case, at least when I was interviewing, what I've heard from other friends as well. And then the other thing that I think is particularly unique about Stanford is the amount of time that is spent on getting you to have a foundational understanding of your field specifically. So I'm an immunology PhD student, and being able to take courses that are hyper-specific to your field is not necessarily an opportunity that was that I think other institutions would have had for me. Yeah.
That's very interesting. And in fact, I would like to add, like in my experience working with students and talking to them, it's not just that the focus is on the work and that they don't care what else you do, but in fact it is encouraged that you do participate in cooking classes and you take advantage of so many opportunities and connection. And so that holistic, that integrated picture is kind of encouraged beyond the classroom. Yeah. Henry?
Yeah, so most med schools will say that they're focused on making MD and something else, but I think Stanford's really much the only school that truly goes the extra mile in doing that, whether it's helping us fund our dual degrees, giving us so many opportunities to explore cooking or ceramics, and the other more overlooked portions of medicine. But what I really think is so special about Stanford as a med school is that they've fully changed the perspective of like most med students at other schools are thinking like, how do I get out as fast as possible? I want to finish these 4 years, get to residency, hopefully get through that, hopefully get to attendinghood. And it's constantly a perspective of like, I want to get to the finish line. Whereas I remember talking to like a bunch of leadership here whenever I was deciding between med schools, and they said, how about we view med school as not as a race, but as something that you should actually enjoy as a journey. And I think that really a good evidence of that is how a lot of our students tend to take more than 4 years to graduate, not because they think that they're worried about residency or they need more training, but because they want to explore more. They want to enjoy the journey and not constantly view life as like, I need to get to the next point, I need to get to the next point. Because whenever you're stuck in that mindset, the finish line is never as good as what you thought it was. Mm-hmm. So it's so important to enjoy the journey. And I think that's what I am currently experiencing as well. Even though I do currently plan on like finishing in 4 years, going beyond that, I've enjoyed life so much, and that like I understand why people are like, oh, I don't want to get out of med school as quick as possible. Whereas my friends at other med schools are like, oh my gosh, I can't wait. Like, I have 2 more years of this. And I'm just like, oh, I have 2 more years. Could be more. It is what it is. Yeah.
That's interesting that you highlight the journey itself is a reward
Indeed.
In many ways, and not just the destination.
Mm-hmm.
Kamsi, you want to add to that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there are 2 things in particular that, at least from an academic standpoint or from an innovation standpoint, I can point to that are fairly Stanford unique. The first for me, I'll share a short anecdote to kind of illustrate my point. I think pretty early on in my PhD training for neuroscience, I took a course in molecular neuroscience, and I remember I sat down and I sort of enjoyed the lecture. It was a really good lecture, but we didn't have the lecture slides available to us. And so I remember asking somebody else in the class, I was like, oh, do you know if we're going to have the slides available? And she responded and said, oh, I'm not sure if he sent them out, but actually, if you look up his Nobel Prize talk, they're pretty similar. And I was like, okay. And I think, I don't know this because I haven't been at other institutions for medical school, but my sense is that it's not very common to have Nobel laureates giving your lectures all the time. And so that was a pretty remarkable experience. I think another equally important and amazing opportunity that I've had here at Stanford is, and this touches on something that we started talking about earlier, but the integration of the different spheres of influence here. And so specifically for me, this has been extremely relevant for my research being translational. The research institution and the number of opportunities to actually be doing research directly next to 4 hospital systems and right, this is such an incredible opportunity that I don't think I've really seen in many other places, and that has manifested very poignantly for me. I mentioned my current PI, Michelle, who is sort of running these clinical trials for this amazing CAR T-cell therapy, and then she goes to the hospital and administers that CAR T-cell therapy to her patients. And I really, that has been so exciting for me as sort of aspiring physician scientist to be able to see someone reach the pinnacle of what it means to stand both in the research sphere and in the clinical sphere. And I think that Stanford is kind of a champion of that type of ideal.
Mm-hmm. Interesting, yeah, fun anecdote of the Nobel professor. So just a final wrap-up question before we also take some questions from the audience. Can you share a meaningful interaction you've had with Stanford alumni, and also reflect a little bit on how you'd like alumni to connect and engage with students? Henry, do you want to start?
Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, the only reason I'm on the board of governors is because I was paired with a Stanford alumni who's been one of my amazing mentors. And what I think is so funny about how I met her is that she literally put her bio online, and I don't think most Stanford medical students will be as bold as I was, but I was like, oh, I would love to have her as a mentor. Because Dr. Nichols was actually at the event where we were supposed to get paired up with mentors, and he was like, I know for a fact Dr. Melissa was not there. How did Henry even find this person? So it was just so like heartwarming to me that, like, you know, Dr. Melissa got a random email being like, a student would like to have you as a mentor. And she was like, oh, I'd love to. I'd be happy to do that. So I'm not saying that like y'all need to like reach out to students and everything, and like putting your bio online will get students to reach out to you. But I've really enjoyed so much how alumni are so open to just talking to us, just because we have the @stanford.edu handle on our email, and it carries a lot more weight. Like I've told other people, this is my first time at a quote unquote big name school, and I feel it now where I'm like, oh, I'm like so lucky, I'm so blessed. And so that's what I've enjoyed most. And like being on the board of governors, meeting alumni, going to these events, it's so heartwarming to see how many of y'all come back. Because I can assure you that like where I went to school in New Orleans, you know, Tulane isn't having these types of events or having this large of a turnout. So I think it's just very heartwarming that our future generations are constantly giving back and trying to make our lives better, because it's truly like y'all feedback and y'all work that has gotten us okay, and all these other things that we're so blessed to have that our past generations have worked so hard to get for us.
Thank you, Henry. Thanks, and a round of applause for the alumni.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jessica, do you want to share about your interaction with alumni and how you hope to connect?
Absolutely. So, me and my other PhD counterpart on the board of alumni on SMAA, we host dinners with alumni. It's one alumnus and 9 PhD students, and we all go to dinner, and the students love it. It's very popular. They come and we chat and X, Y, and Z. And so I invited this one alum named Nguyen, and he was like, I was surprised he responded to my email, first of all, because I send out so many cold emails, and it's just so nice to see that when I reach out to a Stanford alum, they respond. No matter where they are in life, they'll just be like, oh, you go to Stanford, oh, great. And then they'll respond, and they're excited to also engage with students. And I think that that's something that's invaluable, because so many students come away from these events really just enjoying them, learning so much, learning a lot about how to navigate their PhD, but also learning a lot about how to move forward and understanding that life is quite serendipitous. I think a lot of the students come in, very much like micromanage. I've done this, I've done that, I've done this. And a lot of alumni just tell you, just chill, life will happen. You look at people's LinkedIns, they're like a mile long. You thought they've accomplished so much. And so many alumni just come in, and especially in this case with Ian, he's like, I worked for a company. The person that I worked for was absolutely horrible. Then I got this job at Genentech, then X, Y, and Z, and this and that. And people felt connected to him, and I feel like the best thing that we get from, I shouldn't hit this, from alumni is just that we learn from you, and we learn how to, not only about our current experiences through advice about how we can navigate, even though you might have not been here in a long time, how we can navigate our current degrees, but also how to move forward, even if it's not in the same career path. I think that that's something that's incredibly invaluable to learn about how to manage life, how to learn about just life is messy, and how to navigate that is something that I've truly cherished, and that I feel like, oh, okay, I think that things are going to be okay in the end. So.
Thanks, Jessica. That's really interesting. Thanks for sharing. Kamsi, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, sure. I think I may sound a little bit like a broken record here because I'll be repeating some of what was said, but a huge point of emphasis for me is the openness and the responsiveness and the kindness from alumni that I've interacted with. And I know that, for example, we've got our MD PhD retreat coming up in a couple weeks now, and for one of the events, we were hoping to have a panel with MD PhD alumni, and our program directors sort of asked us to just reach out to a couple, which to me was really I was like, aren't you what? Like, exactly. Should I be reaching out? But it turns out they were right. They love responding to students, and I sent out a couple emails, and suddenly, all of these alumni are like, oh, hey, like, I'm not in town, and they will go the extra mile. They'll share, oh, I'm not in town, and I wouldn't be able to make it over, but actually, I highly recommend a classmate of mine who graduated the same year, who is in San Francisco now doing XYZ really amazing work. And so that has just been so incredible, and even at our alumni board dinner party, pizza party, where I got to connect with some alumni, and they were reaching out to some of their classmates saying, oh, this student's really interested in neuroscience. I bet this would be a great connection for you to make. And I so appreciate the fact that folks are so open and willing to go that extra mile for students.
Yeah. Thank you, Kamsi. And I love this theme of like the generosity of the alumni and their responsiveness, but also not just connecting with the professional networks, but also sharing their personal stories and also personal setbacks, which kind of makes students, I think, feel empowered that it need not necessarily be a linear path, because the alumni 20 years from now, they've done well professionally, but they didn't necessarily have a linear professional path, right? So just that itself is a learning. So thank you for sharing, and we will turn the spotlight on the alumni in the room and invite any questions that you all might have. Yes, and we'll have to wait for the mic to come to you because we are being live streamed. We have a question right here.
Thank you. Try to be patient. Tell us about the fourth floor.
Yeah, sure. So the fourth floor is like a lounge made just for the students, where it's like we have a kitchen, we have a gym, we have rooms, and you need to badge in. So it's like you have to use your medical student badge, and if you don't, whenever you press 4, it doesn't go. So I feel a little bad whenever I'm like in the elevator and everyone's like, oh, what floor? And I was like, oh, I really wish you could press it for me, but I have to like badge in and everything. But it is very nice. Like I still remember whenever people say like this is truly just for the students, it really is, because like at other schools it's like, oh yeah, this is for y'all, but everyone can use it. So it's like not truly like that. So that's what I love about the fourth floor. And yeah, for a lot of people, it's like their sanctuary, like away from classes. It's like naps in between. I love taking naps in between up there. So it's very nice. And yeah.
Yeah.
And it has a prayer room and a fitness center as well.
It does, yeah.
Yeah, I think that that whole not being able to press the fourth floor button successfully has added a lot of intrigue and mystery to what's happening up there. But
Indeed.
It is mostly study rooms and a prayer room and the gym and the essentials for us. So.
Hi everyone, I'm Jean Tang. I'm a faculty member here at Stanford in dermatology. I also did my MD, PhD, and an alumni. I started in '95, graduated in 2003, and I would challenge Jessica, Henry, and Kamsi. You guys all did an amazing presentation and just really spoke so well. And as an alumni, I think part of the secret sauce is the smallness of Stanford, and we've all been touched because it's such a small class, and maybe, unlike some of our peer institutions, because of the smallness, the faculty members reach out and care about each and one of us, and we feel that on the alumni level. And I just wanted to say, the fourth floor thing is real. So maybe on the break, these wonderful students might take you all up on a tour, because as a faculty member, when this building was built, I heard about the fourth floor. I used my badge and tried to sneak up there, and I couldn't go up there. There is a fitness room. There is a personal trainer, and there's a beautiful view of the hills. that nobody can see except for them. So go find them afterwards. It's amazing.
This is a general question, and it's a generational question. You all were born digital. There are a lot of folks in your peer group that have not had the level of success that you guys have, who have an inability to let the phone go. Can you share with us how you manage electronic devices in your life leading to med school and in med school?
That's a very insightful. I'd like to learn the answer to that too.
Yeah, so I'll be honest in saying that I think technology, like it's always been, has been a tool. So it can be used for good, it can be used for bad. For me, I actually get most of my studying done like on my phone because it's so comfortable to study on my bed. And everyone's like, Henry, how can you do that? I was like, well, you see those 2 steps on my desk, that might be enough friction to make sure I don't study for that day. So being able to do it on my phone is very nice. And it's funny that I'm starting clerkships now. So I know that anything I do on my phone looks like I'm goofing around. Even if I'm on Epic, I'm searching up patients. So I have my own tablet now to take care of that. And so it's very nice to do that. But I fully agree with you that there's definitely our generation who they're constantly online. And it's tough to get out of that. Here at Stanford, you can literally look outside and it's like, oh, it's beautiful. I actually want to go for a walk. I have never, ever in my life ever wanted to go for a walk in Louisiana. So the weather here is so amazing. And as I've told people, I was like, you know how happy you have to be to just want to go on a walk? And they're like, wow, Henry really is super happy. So for me, obviously I'm working for AI companies. A lot of people are worried about like how AI is going to take over. And as I said, I truly think it's a tool, and it's on like the future leaders to really make it more beneficial than harmful. And yeah.
I personally am not on my phone that much. Yeah, but I was going to say that I think that for us, like in terms of as an educational tool, the phone is not as much of a thing. I think that what it has become more and more of a thing is using AI and using AI as a tool to, I don't know if it's a very blurry world. Is it cheating? Is it not cheating? Am I learning? Am I cutting corners? I will say it does make research much more efficient. I do a lot of computational work. And when you have a coding question and you can go through Stack Overflow for 2 hours about it, or you can get it answered in 2 minutes by putting it through ChatGPT, it's an incredible tool for that. But I think that for the most part, most students don't really, I think that most people have like their pseudo addictions to your typical Instagram and TikTok and whatnot. Less TikTok. I think TikTok's a bit younger, but yeah,
It's taken over though.
it has taken over. Oh my gosh. But yeah, but most people, I think it's not really about using the phone or like technology is mostly for communication and for efficiency. Mm-hmm. That's the most important thing. Is there a slight dependency on using technology for that? Yes. And I think there is a strong push also to get more people to be more computational researchers. I can see in my own program, we have a split between the people who are trying to be true bench, like at the bench wet lab scientists versus people who are trying to be computational scientists. And everybody's like, computation is the future. That's where all the funding is going. NIH is literally putting it in grants saying, we prefer grants that are computationally focused. Mm-hmm. And I don't know how that's going to shift things and change things. But there's definitely a push to get you to be probably more on your computer and more of a coding scientist than a bench or a wet lab scientist.
Yeah. I think that can be a totally different and altogether new panel discussion. The digital dependency, and especially with our digital natives here. So I do see a hand there at the back.
Hi, Jane Binger. I have a question for you. First of all, great presentation. I'm curious if you're going to pass it on. So 15, 25, 35 years from now, when you get a call or an email to do something for Stanford Med alumni, what do you think the answer is going to be?
Well, I mean, I'm on the board of governors, so I do understand like what the emails are going to come from. And similar to what Dr. Melissa did for me, I'd be happy to pay it back and be like, oh yeah, sure, let's get lunch, let's get dinner, and respond to them. And it will be like, I'll probably be looking for the @stanford.edu because that will be easy to filter through. So yeah, I fully intend on answering back and giving back similar to what I've already received.
Right.
Likewise, I'm also on the board, so I will absolutely respond back. And I think that a lot of students would. I think that it's really key that a lot of students Stanford makes a very concerted effort, which I don't think most institutions do to make sure people feel like they have a positive experience here as a student. And they put the resources in to really make sure that I think most people come away not feeling so jaded that they're like, if I ever hear from anybody from Stanford ever again, forget it. But I think that most students would say yes, and I would say yes for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually recall at our white coat ceremony, one of the first things they said to us was, you are a Stanford medical student for life. And so I think that kind of the opportunity to have this sort of association for the rest of our lives is invaluable, and then the opportunity to pay that forward is, I wouldn't call it an obligation, but it feels like something that is almost a no-brainer to be doing. And so, yeah, incredibly grateful for this community and excited to continue to be a part of it long after I've left the physical space.
Great to hear. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for bringing this up, and I love this theme of paying it forward and continuing the legacy of giving across the generations. So I think we are at time, and thank you for being such an enthusiastic audience, and thanks also to our panelists. A big round of applause.